Good morning, members. I call to order the meeting of the subcommittee. Item number 1 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. Up to this morning, the Secretariat hasn't received any proposed amendment. So, members, can we now confirm the minutes? Okay, so minutes confirmed. Item 2. Information papers issued since the last meeting. The information is set out on the agenda. Ms. Tanya CHAN, good morning, Chairman. The WKCDA has responded to my letter concerning the discussion of the financial situation of WKCD a few days ago in respect of the Palace Museum and the recent announcement of the successful bidder, that is a China construction, for the construction project. I don't know how often you surf the website of the WKCDA, and we have Mr. Pascott and the permanent secretary. Well, in the past, they kept their information rather transparent, but this page on the tender notice, in the past, we would get a lot of information for a few months, 2016, 2017, and now it's only for 3 months ahead. I don't know why a wholly owned corporation of government would now try to restrict the flow of information. I don't know whether it's got to do with the memory capacity of the website. Chairman, you are also a board member. I just wonder why we are getting less and less information. Would the Chairman, the Bureau and the authority please clarify? I need to clarify this. I'm not a board member. Your letter has been relayed to the administration and the authority. Some of your requests do not come under the purview of the subcommittee, such as I'll ask the secretary to clarify this. We know, we have a set of terms of reference. Secretary, regard to the website information, would you please take that up with the authority? You mean we're not going to do this through the joint subcommittee to monitor the implementation of WKCD project concerning the provision of information? So are you saying that while we monitor the WKCD project, we cannot monitor this? It has to do with governance. Chairman, I'm not trying to make things difficult for the Secretariat. I wrote to them, they were willing to provide a response. And I've got proof that it is the case. I just don't know why things have changed so much. But this is not in the agenda. Then perhaps after the meeting, we can talk to Ms. Chan and the authority again. Well, but you said I should follow up the matter with the authority myself. Well, you have made your views known. We have representative from the authority here. After the meeting, the Secretariat would follow up the matter with you. We have nothing on this on today's agenda. And the Secretariat is just trying to give us a reminder as regards our terms of reference. Item 3, update on the development of Art Park and Free Space. I'd like to welcome the representatives from the WKCDA and over to our guests for introduction of the subject. Yes, Chairman, if I may, I would like to make a short introduction. Well, the WKCDA is going to provide a leisure area within the urban setting. It will also host a number of arts and cultural events, and the facilities there are being made available to the public, and a free space is now being hosted at the Great Lawn. The catering facilities are being implemented, and the art park is in the middle of the WKCD. Once at the western end of that part of WKCD, and a number of activities have been arranged for the launching of the free space formally. And may I now give the floor to Mr. Pascoe for an update.
I'm actually going to ask Jeremy to do it for us with Alison to help on the second part.
Okay. So, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. So just to go through a few slides of where we are this morning on the development of our art park. I've got 4 or 5 slides, and then I'll hand over to Alison on some of the software side of what's going on in the park. So you can see here from the image on the screen, we're delivering the park in 3 phases. The orangey area, phase 1, already open. Phase 2, which has 2 parts, is the phase that we've recently opened. There's the green building in the middle called Free Space. That's due to be opened in the next couple of months, although the building side of it is completed. And then we have a 3rd phase, which is on the far side of that slide in the yellow area, which is all of the lawn area and landscaped area just to the west of the M+ Museum. So here we have just an aerial picture. This was taken, I think, about a month or so ago. You can see the very large lawn in the middle of the screen there, and to the left is the Free Space building, which is completed. And you can see there on the perimeter, the very lovely promenade, which is now open. The new area is about sort of 300, 350 meters of promenade, about 20 plus meters wide, and now being enjoyed daily by people during their lunch hours and after work. It's a very spectacular spot. So you can see here, again, an aerial shot of the density of some of the landscaping it's already taking. We also have a lot of the light posts around all of the paving, which have CCTV and wireless also, which is coming on stream over the next month. This building is the Free Space building, so we have completed all of the statutory inspections, which has been good, and we're now just going through the licensing in order that we can hold events there later on this year. This is a shot from the harbour, and that strip that you can see looking at in elevation there is all the retail, dining and entertainment that we will be having on the waterfront. I think a very much needed thing in Hong Kong, and I think it'll be very, very beautiful when it all opens up. The tenants have just taken the space, I think this week, so they will have a couple of months fit-out period, and then we hope that most of these food and beverage outlets will be up and running around early June. You can also see there that this is what we call a double curve feature, which is in the park. So the retail, dining and entertainment is below, but you can walk above on a sort of secondary promenade area, and it has the most fantastic vista of Hong Kong Island. Really spectacular. So just a close-up, this is one of our signature restaurants that will be in the park. Again, looking all over Hong Kong Island, with a fantastic view, and that also has a rooftop, that restaurant. Okay, so I think I'll just hand over to Alison just to speak about some of the software side of what's happening in the park.
Thank you. Do you mind hitting the thing? Yeah, okay. 早晨，我係
Good morning. I'm Alison from WKCD. I'm the learning Cantonese, but I'm no good at it.
是我係
I would like to report to you in Cantonese, but I'm still no good, so I've used 普通话. You know the Empress Pavilion, which was formally opened in 2016. We have hosted a number of exhibitions. There will be a number of new exhibitions slotted for this year. Free space. It will be opened in the middle of the year, as you have been told by Jeremy. The park is already in use. As at March, we have monthly free space activities. Free space happening is shown here. It's an outdoor performance with 3,000 or so people participating. It's part of our free space programming. We are going to have four facilities. The Box, the biggest black box theater in Hong Kong, and for this one, we're going to invite different artist groups and performance companies, including music, drama, and so on, to give performances. And we have the room. It's a smaller one facility for the workshop, for the forum. This is about audience development and also the creation of new works. And there's the live house. We don't have a name in either Cantonese or 普通话. This is for live music, and a small bar and cafe is there for people who would come to enjoy live music after work. We have jazz, and we have other international music festivals. And here, let me turn to street performance scheme, and it was launched in 2015. So far, we have had over 500. We have issued 500 street performance permits. This is about quality assurance, and WKCD welcomes different artists. Thank you.
Now is 而家咧就係
Well, we use 3 languages. Well, welcome. The floor is now open for members to raise questions. Mr. Tony Chan, Miss Tanya Chan. Speaker's not coming through. Mr. Tanya CHAN. The order is okay. And then Mr. Ma and Mr. Yu. Mr. Tony CHAN. I think we have been waiting earnestly for the facilities to be commissioned. We hope they can move ahead very smoothly, so that we can have them as scheduled. We have been waiting for 10 to 20 years for this to happen.
Now, for the art park, according to the paper, 60% of the area is greenery. I understand that 2,000 trees have been planted. I'd like the WKCD to explain to me about the selection of trees. What is their consideration, especially after Typhoon Mangkhut? I think we're all concerned. I want to know whether you have consulted the views of experts, arborists. The other point is that the WKCDA also encourages visitors to use the cycling path as a sustainable means of transport. And you also have the program called Smart Bike. I'd like to know the situation, including utilization and the commissioning date. I also have another question on visitor facilities. I remember last time the paper was dated the 20th of December 2017, and I understand that there were 2 rental points. Why is it that now it seems that only 1 point is available? And last time it was also mentioned that the software will be upgraded by the middle of 2018, and then online booking of bicycles would be available. I want to know whether there's been a change. So these are the questions. I didn't mention the time limit. Let's stick to a 4-minute speaking time limit to avoid complaints, but I do allow flexibility, all right? Who would take the questions, please? Mr. Pascott.
Bike one, and then I'll ask Jason to deal with the greening issue. You're quite right. We first started the bike hire system, the smart bike system, before the site was really developed, to be frank with you. And we've been looking at it. In fact, there were originally 3 points where you could rent bikes. We had to close them down progressively as we developed the art park, to the extent that during the period when we just had what we call the nursery park, we basically had 1 point. But as we've now moved into the opening of the art park, we're now looking to reopen more hiring points.
So what will be your target?
Well, to be frank with you, we want them throughout the district. It's not just within the art park area.
Right, okay.
We want it to be able to go right down to the far end by the CHAN Centre. So the problem is the link in the middle, as you know. We just don't have that. So I think at the moment the intention is 2 within art park or that area, but then progressively we'll roll out more as we can. But I would also add that in terms of the software upgrade, we're looking not only at upgrading the software, but also the hardware. We're replacing the bikes with more modern versions of the bike, and that's something that we're working on, which is why it's taking us slightly longer than we had anticipated. But that is still our intention.
Any targets finished?
Yeah, I would hope by the end of this year we'll have everything in place. But
End of this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we're not stopping the hire scheme. We are going to keep that existing hire scheme going and progressively introduce the new bikes as we go forward. So Jason perhaps can answer the greening issue.
主席你好，大家好，我姓張係。
Good morning. I am Jason Teo. I am the landscape artist of WKCD. In the area, we have planted over 2,000 trees, and we have consulted our landscape consultant, and we have also the arborist visiting the mainland. 50% of these trees were original local tree species. As for the area of the green lawn, out of the 60% of the green area, we have an area of 13,000 square meters. So regarding tree species and the location for these trees, we've drawn reference to the opinion of the landscaping consultant. Can I invite Mr. Tiao to provide a written reply about the basic considerations of tree species selected and their locations? because it is very important for the whole park. Yes, please provide that after the meeting because of the impacts brought about by Typhoon Mangkhut. It was the impact was significant. It's a windy area. It is vast. So I would invite the WKCDA to give us more information. Next, Mr. Ray Chan. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I have a question on free space, in particular the box, the room, the studio, the live house, and their usage. Because I understand that we're talking about the middle of this year when the free space will be commissioned from the paper. I don't see a date. And in paragraph 5 of the electricals background brief, it is said that the occupation permit would be obtained by early January 2019 for the planned opening in April 2019. Well, there seems to be a delay. And I don't see a concrete timetable so far because I understand from paragraph 13 of their paper, they have lined up a number of performances in the box. Now, I understand that some parties were interested in the box and they learned about the news and they would like to know more about when they would be able to make bookings. And I want to know whether the box is now open for the public for hiring. Because I've been asked by some people and they're not sure about this and about the hiring charges, Shichu Center. And in fact, even the Manamo Mingchun suggested that the hiring charges were too high. And so about the hiring charges for the box, the room, the studio, the live house, I'd like to know the charges and whether you have any set of vetting criteria. I understand there is a set for Shichu Center. Alison.
關於
Thank you for the questions. About commissioning of the performance venue, actually some tickets are already available for sale. In the middle of this year, we're going to work with May French and also Hong Kong Repertory Theatre. Tickets are already available for sale. I think that the news is also available online. And then the tickets would be ready for sale whenever we have a performance coming. And the opening ceremony will take place quite some later, and then you'll be able to enjoy these various performances and workshops. And when the weather gets better, there will be a major celebration for both the park and free space.
Just to explain, we learnt a lot from the opening of the Sichu Center. And we had a fixed date for the opening. And quite frankly, we felt that we needed more time to do a proper soft opening, to test all the systems, to make sure it was operationally up to standard. So this time around, we're adopting a slightly different approach with a soft opening, which will be basically from May with the French May, leading up to the formal opening later in the year when we're confident that we have all of the systems properly shaken down, all of the systems operational, and then we'll be making that announcement in due course. However, having said that, the team are already working with various hirers through our normal hiring system to look forward for hiring beyond June, July, August. So that process is already underway. Thank you.
Okay.
主席
Chairman, what about the hiring of venues? Well, can the public apply for hiring the venue now? Whether you accord priority to different parties' hiring charges?
Hiring is already underway. And as we've briefed members previously, the hiring policy is very clear. It's artistically led. And that means that we look at the quality and the artistic standard of the applicants for hire. And that is the determinant which, frankly, will lead the way we hire these venues out. So that's the approach.
雖然今日我哋唔係討論
Well, we're not to discuss the website today, and Alison just now mentioned that the information has been published online. I think the information contains the programs, the lineup. Well, yeah, but is it available online? how about you publish this information on the internet as well? It would be better for answering inquiries. Is it already available?
已经在网上。
Yes, it is available on the internet.
方議員。
Next, Ms. Tanya CHAN. Thank you, Chairman. First question. Well, I think we need more explanation about the occupation permit. According to the electrical's background brief, paragraph 5, it should be ready by April this year. Does it mean that, like Mr. Pascott said, that they learned a lesson from Xishu Center, such that the occupation permit is not obtained at the time they expect? And the other is about street performance permit. The WKCD has all along aimed at providing free space for performers, subject to the issuance of street performance permits. I remember in their previous report, the condition, the situation was quite good. Now, as of December 2017, close to 400 street performance permits were issued. That's in paragraph 7 of the electrical's background brief. And also, according to their paper, the valid street performance permits were 124. That's in paragraph 16. I want to know whether the permits come with conditions, whether auditions were held, whether there were charges. Why is it that you have many permits issued, but only 124 are currently valid? Since we have the free space and also more space for more performances, I want to know whether you will mount another publicity campaign to invite performers to apply for valid street performance permits to bring vibrancy to WKCD. Another question. I'm very interested in free space, and I'd like to know more about the Life House. Is it outdoor or indoors? It doesn't say here. Well, you have invited us to go and have a drink, but of course I need to know whether I should bring an umbrella. So what portion is outside, what portion is covered, for example? That's one question. Another question. Bicycles. Well, Chairman, we know in the new territories, some bicycles of bike sharing services were thrown into the river. The bicycles themselves are innocent. Now, I want to know from the WKCDA whether they would avoid the waste, whether recycling is possible, is about proper use of resources. Rather than sending the used bicycles to landfills, if the condition is still sound, is it possible for these bikes to be recycled and used in WKCD? That's about avoiding the waste.
Couple, and then I'll pass on to Alison. Free space, the Lifehouse is indoors, but we do have the outdoor area as well, so bring an umbrella.
Al fresco.
In terms of the occupation permit, that deals with the physical state of the building, the fire services, etc. Once we get the occupation permit, there is still quite a lot of work required in terms of putting in sound systems, lighting systems, testing those, making sure they're all up to standard. And that's the difference between the occupation permit, which we have already achieved, as I understand it, and the opening, which requires a lot of work to get it from physical completion of the building up to operational completion. So that's why we normally talk in terms of occupation permit followed by practical completion. And it's at the practical completion stage that we would normally start full occupation. What we're trying to do this time is, because we can test a lot of those theatre systems during the soft opening, it means that we can do practical completion at any time when we feel we're comfortable. So that's the logic of it. Unlike what we had to do with Sichu Centre, where we did have the occupation permit, but we had a fixed date for the opening, and we had to rush to get to that. So we're learning from that experience, and we will continue to learn as we go forward. Alison, do you want to talk about the street performance? Oh, Lewis.
Yes. 主席，我大概講簡單咁。
Yes, to report to members very briefly about the issuance of street performance permits. In 2015-16, we started to issue permits. The permit is valid for 1 year for $100. And that depends on whether the applicant would like to apply for renewal. He's happy to do. We're happy for him to do so. From 2015-16, we had 500 applicants. At the moment, some 100 ballots are still valid. This is an established system. Only that in the past there were works nearby, so the number of permits that remained valid varied. But with the works progressing to the final stage, we believe this year more street performers will be applying for the permit.
To deal very quickly with, in fact, it's dealt with in the next paper, but put briefly, we work with the Tunhua group of hospitals as a charity. They operate the system for us, and I'm happy to pass on your suggestion about recycling.
Thank you.
I understand the Greek lawn in the park, in the art park, has been used as an event venue since September last year. And you have also just completed the first winter season of free space happening and other event. And maybe this is actually information supplied by you. I hope in future you can update us with new event, so not just our members, but general public can easily access to the information and participate if they wish.
Yeah. In fact, we do have a newsletter system, and I'm happy to share that with members on a regular basis because it helps us to publicize it. Absolutely.
Okay. 跟住係馬逢國議員。
Mr. Ma Fengkuo.
其实在这里呢，今天
Thank you, Chairman. What's concerned me is the free space and life house. 10 years ago, when we started to have WKCD, I talked to Louis and also Alison that this may not look like a big facility, but it's an important facility. And I asked whether and how we can maintain the vibrancy. How can we maintain this as a symbol of vibrancy as well as diversity? For a tourist destination like Hong Kong, we must also allow visitors to enjoy WKCD. And they can enjoy the performances or have a drink and stroll around freely. And WKCD is not suffering from severe noise pollution. But so far, what we have got is Lifehouse. It's the Lifehouse, the only facility of this nature. We need small-scale music performances involving 5 or 10 people at most for visitors. We should have 5 or 10 facilities like the Lifehouse. Can some of the catering facilities be converted into something like the Lifehouse? Can we provide more space? So that's my first question.
Yes, we are happy to work with the operators of the various commercial premises. And indeed, we do already have agreement with at least one of those that will be operating some entertainment within their facility. So I agree with that entirely. And as we develop more of these facilities, we can extend that idea.
那是另外一个问题啊，因为在那个商业。
Well, that's another question. Within the commercial premises, different tenants have different considerations of what they want to do. But as the developer, you have to get a mechanism in place so that something can coexist and in such a setting. Otherwise, tenants may complain against each other. You should have the overall layout and all the environmental friendly facilities and installation are ready, you should give the overall planning. We want to create a cluster effect, that we have to depend on you. If you look at Lan Kwai Fong, then something like that in Singapore, Shanghai, Beijing, and many cities in the US, they're all doing this at night. Well, it's very lively. The vibrancy can be extended up to 1, 2 a.m. all over the night. A vibrant city needs this.
I mean, indeed, one of the opportunities that an authority like ourselves has is to curate the spaces. And that's not just the culture and art spaces, but as we take on different operators for the various venues, we can take into account exactly your point to make sure that it is lively, it's active at all times, and that is absolutely what our intention is. I agree.
但是你如果把他们都放在那个
But if they are all housed in the commercial part, noise is difficult to control. But if it's near the free space or at the promenade, well, it's very different. And I find one thing curious. I mentioned this many times. I mentioned this at the board meeting when I was a member of the board. And it seems that it's not been taken on board. That is, we are not proactively planning the use of these outdoor space. It's very different from having such facilities within the tenant's premises.
The use of the outdoor spaces. This is what Alison and her team are doing. For example, last weekend, we had a Hello Dog event in the park, very popular. And very unexpected from our point of view that people really will support these sort of non-traditional forms of activity. So I can assure you that this is not just curated the commercial space, but all of the space is being curated. And indeed, I would point out that as we develop the Artist Square, the Central Square, they will also be covered by this approach of curation for the spaces.
OK， 跟住姚思榮議員。
謝謝主席。
Thank you, Chairman. I want to ask a question about the arrangement for the box. We have a shortage of exhibition and venue. With the commissioning of the free space, I hope we can contribute towards relieving the shortage problem of exhibition venue. So would you be willing to relax a bit on the requirement of only allowing art-related activities? Would you be willing to allow the non-art-related activities to some extent? And also, what is your expected occupancy rate in about 6 months' time when you commission this? And so what's the hiring situation, advanced hiring situation for this in the future? As for street performance permits, you have issued 500 sold and only 124 are still valid. Do you think this is a high utilization or low utilization? And what's the plan for further development of street performance? Or are you going to stick to the existing arrangement? And do you expect the number of permits or valid permits to be declining over time?
The exhibition space issue. Within the district, we have the M+ Pavilion, and that will eventually become available for normal exhibition use. At the moment it's used by M+. I expect it to be used by the Palace Museum next, but in due course that will become available. We hope also very shortly to release the expression of interest exercise for our ACE project, which will be a large exhibition facility within the district with a capacity for up to 10,000 people for indoor performances. As far as the box is concerned, we don't have any objection to the use by non-artistic, but as I say, the priority is artistic. Perhaps Alison can expand on that.
谢谢。对，我们其实艺术空间。
Of course, we have facilities for performances, and the hiring policy as approved by the board is as what the CEO has told you. Well, non-performance related activities like exhibitions are welcome, although we give priorities to performances. Of course, a performance venue must give priority to performances.
比如说你
If someone applies for the use of a facility for an exhibition, so when can you give them a reply? Because they need to publicize their event and they need to know whether their booking is accepted. Our priority is about time. As you said, for artistic groups, they have to know the result of the applications at least 6 months in advance. When we like to consolidate the program in 40 months in advance, and then there will be another programming activities 6 or 9 months in advance. This is going to, if this is going to happen, this will help with the tourism sector a lot. So I'd like to know the planning for the future in respect of street performance. Well, the response in respect of street performance has been much warmer than expected. But in recent past, we have works carrying on, and as a result, the number of visitors is restricted. And with towards the end of this year, I expect that we can issue more and more street performance permits. What's the usage during the working days? Well, we have 100 or 200 people jogging there, and we are pet friendly. And during the weekend, the car park is usually full. We have more family visitors coming over to have a picnic and so on. Towards from the middle of this year towards the end of the year, with the transport fully opened, we believe we are going to see even more visitors. I have a number of questions myself. I agree with some members that in the wake of Typhoon Mangkhut, many trees were destroyed, and you know this is an exposed area. It's near the harbor. It's the waterfront area. You have to give due consideration to these factors in choosing trees. And recently, we have also got bicycle accidents. WKCD must, of course, take into account the safe use of bicycles. And there are more visitors now. And as Louis has said, the car park will be full during the weekend. And around WKCD, near Kowloon Station, traffic is busy. So perhaps if you give more advanced information to visitors so that they can enjoy it even more.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. In fact, we are progressively putting up more signage around the site. As for example, if you look on this slide, you can see what we call the Hall Road is now completed. It's only been completed for what, about 2 months now, something like that. So as that improves, of course, we will progressively improve the situation. In terms of the effect of Mangkut, yes, we did have a number of trees down, and we'll be providing that information separately. But I can say that we were able to rescue, if you want, a large number of those that were knocked down, and we're taking advice as to how to protect them better in future. All of the design, all of the trees, the planting, has taken into account the location on this very exposed and frankly quite difficult site for planting. So we are taking advice on that point. The issue about car parking, in fact, we've just opened a new car park. We call it the Interface Car Park. And that's providing, I think, about 209 additional car park spaces, which will relieve some of the burden that we had previously. So things are improving slowly.
I still have another question. If you take a look at the surrounding, it looks very nice. The place is surrounded by the harbor. What about yachts? Other water transport means? About the control and the use of waters? Have you thought about it? What happens if there's a concert or there's an event? And if you have yachts and vessels both nearby, will it result in something else?
I guess the subject of the next paper, but I can say we are looking at putting in a pier within the district. At the moment, we rely on the public landing steps that exist within the typhoon shelter, and we have in fact used that to provide access to a free space event previously about 3-4 years ago. So yes, that is part and parcel of our longer term design.
Okay.
Second round, Mr. Tony Chair, Ms. Tanya Chan, Mr. Ray Chan, and Mr. Muffin Kwok. 3 minutes each, please. Please observe the speaking time limit. Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you. Chairman, first, I'd like the WKCD Authority to provide information to us about the Smart Bike program. As I asked just now, I'd like to know the utilization, various dates, and perhaps, Chairman, you're also concerned about the accidents involved, whether they have records of accidents. Second question, the WKCDA is also environmentally friendly. So we have 20 chargers for electric vehicles. I'd like to know about the charging points. I've heard that it takes a long time for charging the vehicles. What kind of chargers are they? Are they quick chargers, slow chargers? Can you tell us something about the performance of chargers? Third question. Well, I welcome the WKCDA's effort in holding a competition for young architects about the pavilion. In 2017, in April, I remember that an exhibition was held. It was a temporary exhibition, but it was iconic and it was well received. I remember that some 300 entries were submitted. So first, if possible, I do hope that more such competitions can be held, because the WKCDA places emphasis on art. Also, if there is a competition, everyone can give full play to their talent. I'm wondering if you can give more opportunities for the winning entries to really participate in your work, for the ideas to translate into something real. I don't know whether this is in your program. This is underway. Just give more opportunities to the winners.
You've actually built the winning entry. So if you go down to the site, you can see the winning entry from the last competition. It is fantastic, I have to say. It looks brilliant, made of wood. surrounded by water. It's absolutely lovely. We definitely intend to continue this program, and we'll be doing it probably end of this year into next year. The intention is always that the winner's design will be built, and they help us to build it. So we actually used the two architects who won that design to help us to realize it, because as you know, the design and the reality isn't always the same thing, so you have to modify and develop it. I have to say, and Jeremy's team were heavily engaged in this, it really has been a very successful program. So I absolutely agree with you. This is something that we'll continue to do.
Second, Ms. Tanya CHAN. Thank you, Chairman. Together with Mr. Ray Chan, we looked up the information online about the online booking system. It seems that little information is available. On the other hand, we were asked about the proposed ticket price. Well, I held an event before. For small troops, usually we have a very tight budget. So I would compare this with the Shawson Hill Theatre with similar seating capacity. And I'd like to know more about the hiring charges and your policy, because I'm concerned about smaller troops. They've been looking very keenly forward to your black box theatre. In the end, they are unable to afford a black box theatre. Only large corporations have the means. So I think it's not in line with your intention. So I'd like to know about your policy and when such information will be available, because applications will be received 16 months before the performance. But then we don't see a lot of information. We don't know anything about, say, the audiovisual system, the interior. So I think that applicants are somewhat helpless. Is it the case that we will have the information soon, Louis? To take your question, yes, it will happen soon, because we will obtain the occupation permit very soon, and we are discussing with the relevant government departments about the public performance license. These two matters will affect the ultimate seating capacity and the possible changes. Now, the information available online is such that we would invite you to leave your information here for us to contact you. Once we can confirm the details and finalize the seating arrangements, it will be published online. And for those who have left their contact with us, we would approach them first, so they will be available online very soon. Just to pick up on the last point, will you contact those with permits which have expired? Would you contact them first? Like I said, we're talking about the public performance license, not the street performance permit. Right, coming back to street performance permit, that's my point. Would you take the initiative to contact the permit holders to invite them to come back? Just $100, since you have more space now. Yes, we'll give it a thought. Mr. Ray Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow up on the boxed room, the studio, and the live house. As of today, well, you gave us a presentation, but we haven't seen anything about the pictures of these structures. We don't see the exterior or the interior. We don't know whether they have even been completed. Ms. Tanya CHAN just now also asked a question. You say that the hiring charges can't be made available at this stage online, unlike the Sishu Center, because it's very difficult for applicants to decide whether to book a place. Because how can we finalize our proposed ticket prices if we don't know the hiring charges? Now, you have partnerships with Edward Lam Dance Theatre, the French May, Hong Kong Repertory Theatre, etc. Is it that you invite these participants to work with you instead of them expressing interest to you first?
Ms. Friedman.
不好意思，你问的问题是
I'm sorry, your question? The question is about hiring information. According to Mr. Ray Chan, it seems that he can't see detailed information on the hiring procedure, the hiring charges. So, well, Chairman, how about we ask her about the interior or the exterior of these three buildings? Well, how about we answer Mr. Ray Chan's questions all together? I would say that they are completed. They've been built. And we welcome members of this joint subcommittee to visit these facilities. And about hiring information, charges, details, like I said just now, we're in the final stage. It's subject to modification. We are awaiting discussion on the public performance licenses. This will affect the final seating capacity. So for interested parties, please ring us or contact us on the internet. And once we have information, we will contact them. And we welcome members of this committee to visit Free Space. Very short, Chairman, I'd like to talk about the level of charges, whether the hirers will be able to afford it. So that means I would need to ask a troop to write in an application to express interest to discuss the hiring charges so that next time we can discuss whether the hiring charges are affordable.
Comment on this. We will, of course, publish the hiring charges. There will be a hiring, what do you call it, a hiring rate card, which will be published. As Lewis has explained, we're still finalizing that. So wait until we publish it, then come back to us.
Well, that's important, like I said, because various members of the public may not understand fully the hiring procedure and the hiring charges, and they tend to criticize the charges being too expensive, thereby stirring up some unnecessary comments in the community. We'll just like the WKCDA to make available these information as soon as possible. Mr. Ma Feng Kuo. Thank you, Chairman. Two questions. According to the paper, the box will accommodate long-running productions. I'd like the WKCDA to explain what is meant by longer-running productions. Is it that you will subsidize these productions? And what about the tenure? How long would you consider it longer running? And what is meant by meeting long-term needs? And the second question about street performances. That means some 300 street performance permits have expired. Over the past few years, is it that for the 124 permit holders, they have been renewing the permits? Lewis, a consolidated response. For street performance permits, on average, some 100 applicants have actively renewed their permits. We have new permit holders. We have permits that have expired. Over the years, we issued 500 street performance permits. On average, some 100 remain valid. We hope in the coming year, the number will increase. The other point about longer-running productions, let me give you one example. One program is already selling tickets. We're working with Hong Kong Repertory Theatre. Some 10 years ago, there was a program performed in the Hong Kong Cultural Center, but the venue was too small. Now it will take place in the box. It will be on show for a month in the box. It's a very unique show, and it takes a lot of time to prepare. So we allow the Hong Kong Repertory Theatre to use the box for a month in putting this performance. This is also a consideration by the applicant. Well, Chairman, I have expressed a number of times that I really support this kind of performance. And I think in WKCD there should be more than one such venue. There should be 3 or 4 such venues for our troops to give longer running productions, albeit on a commercial basis. At the moment, the art troupe comes on invitation by the WKCDA. I hope the WKCDA would consider allowing the art troops to run.
Please.
In fact, we will have a large number of such facilities, including at least one more medium-sized theatre in the Lyric Theatre complex, another medium-sized theatre at the eastern end of the project, plus 2 smaller theatres. So yes, within the next 3 or 4 years, there will be more coming on stream. The second point I'd like to make is that in the context of the amount of space occupied by the authority, it is going to be less than 10% overall. The rest of the time will be available for commercial bookings, private bookings, artistic bookings.
Yeah, the point is
We're limiting ourselves.
such venues will still be operated and managed by WKCD, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's not my point. My point is that in the long run, we should have some facilities operated and run and managed by different companies.
Sure.
OK，咁啊，多謝。
All right. I'd like to thank our guests for attending this part of our meeting. Some members have asked for some information. I hope the WKCDA can provide the information to us as soon as you can. And let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you, Louis, Alison, and Jason for attending this part of our meeting.
主席，咁咧就因為其實網頁咧嗰度有。
Chairman, we see a list of the tree species on their website. I hope they will give us more information on how they assess. And it's said that one of the species proposed by Mr. Henry Tang will not likely survive because he said it may not be suitable to the Hong Kong environment, but I hope they can provide more information on the assessment of this Ficus religiosa tree. Next item, integration and connectivity of the West Kowloon Cultural District with its neighboring district. I'd ask the administration and the WKCDA to give us an introduction first. Cherry, we know members have all along been very concerned about the connectivity between WKCD and its neighboring district. That's why we have invited the WKCDA to give us a briefing on integration and connectivity. And we'll also be covering waterborne transport and pedestrian linkage. I'll hand over the floor to WKCDA.
Please.
Let's look at some slides for the latest update in relation to transport and connectivity. After the commissioning of the CHAN Center, we have 13 bus routes or green minibus routes and 4 green minibus routes in close proximity to the district. And we have 2 special routes, 89R and 42R, linking the CHAN Center with Wu Kai Sha Station and Cheung Ching, respectively. And there's another one serving plying between Wang Po Garden and Han Ko Road. And to the west, we've been talking to the Transport Department on a green minibus route or bus route. we're going to finalize this arrangement of GMB very soon. To improve the traffic to the art park, the entrance. And there are 20 to 30 bus routes passing through the Western Harbour crossing, so people can alight there to go to the WKCD or to go to the other side of the harbour on Hong Kong Island. And we also have 4 GMB routes with elements as the terminus. This map shows you the transport facilities through rail and land transport. There are 3 stations. And also in the middle, we have the high-speed rail station and Kowloon Station to the west. On car parks, members are very interested in knowing more about parking spaces. This plan shows you the existing numbers of car parking spaces, as well as the future. The one at CG Center has been commissioned with 60 spaces for private vehicles. With the opening of the art park, there will be a permanent cover car park with 210 spaces that will be available in the middle of this year. As for the other numbers of parking spaces, very quickly we are going to have another 150 spaces underneath M+, and with the there will be 50 under the arts and civic and cultural facility. So we are going to provide more and more. And altogether, for the WKCD, we are going to have 2,000 to 2,200 spaces. Regarding coach parking, we are going to provide 43 spaces. You see the figure in red here. To the north, there will be 26 in the future exhibition facility, another 17. Before these come on stream, we have provided temporary coach parking. For accessing the different facilities. As for landing facilities, we have been using the landing steps of Yamate Typhoon Shelter shown in the middle part of this photo. With the policy support of the Bureau, or the policy support of the authority, we have commissioned detailed studies on the southern landing point here, and to the north. It will be part of the study cover for the exhibition facility. For the southern marine access point, we are going to commission a consultancy study later this year, which we expect to be available in 2022 or 2023. Another item under this program is the autonomous vehicle service. we are going to extend the route to 2 km. Some 6,000 people have tried this autonomous vehicle service. More tests will be carried out on pedestrian connection network. You can see here that with the commissioning of the CHAN Center, Canton Road pedestrian subway is now available. On top, we are going to have another subway project linking up with the basement level of CHAN Center with Austin Road, which will be completed in 2020. So the visitors can access the CHAN Center via this subway at Austin Road. And to the west of Austin Road, we can link up the western part and the eastern part through the high-speed rail station and the Kowloon station and the footbridge for connectivity with the art park as well. This is the existing connections. This is an aerial photo showing the connections. After there's a big connections at platform level, at grade level, to the after you have passed through the high-speed station and through the footbridge, you can access the art park to the west. We are applying for funding to build a footbridge linking up the art park, the elements, and Kowloon Station. And this shows the pedestrian subway linking up Austin Road, Jordan Road, and the CHAN Center. This is under the beautification, and so that's all for my briefing, Chairman. So the floor is now open for members to raise questions with Mr. Yu Si-wing and a number of members who would like to ask questions, 4 minutes each. Mr. Yu Si-wing, I want to ask a question about coach parking. You have a provision of 43 spaces. If we have a major activity at WKCD, and we can expect that there will be more than 43 coaches, would you be able to provide some flexible arrangement? How many can you entertain, or is it that the cap is 43? Other coaches must find alternative parking nearby. And we are seeing some congestion with the high-speed rail commissions. So have you got something for contingency? And second, on the charges for parking, if the charges are too high, the coach drivers would not use it. You know that Hong Kong and we have introduced charging for coaches. It's just $6 per hour, and still some of the drivers don't use the facility. And also for the landing facilities, are you going to adopt the normal specifications for the pier? That is to say, do you provide all the ancillary facilities such as toilets and so on? The speaker's not coming through. Under Zone 2B, that is a basement there. We have parking facilities. We have to consider the major events on a case-by-case basis. There we have also got the exhibition facility, and if necessary, we can provide more space there for parking. But we have to consider the case in question in detail. It may be premature to say that whether we can provide additional parking spaces. But yes, we do have the space available if we want to provide additional parking. After the M Plus museum is completed, there will be another 4 spaces for picking up and setting down of passengers.
For the Hong Kong Palace Museum, we also have 2 coach pick-up drop-off points, which can temporarily be used for parking. We can think about it. We can keep it flexible. As for charges, we do not have a policy at the moment what exactly the charges should be. But I agree with Mr. Yu Si-wing that if you charge them for parking, these drivers might tend to drive around instead. So we need to discuss with the Transport Department. I've also noticed that, say, after commissioning of the XRL station, in fact, towards the end of the station, there are free coach parking space, and that's somewhere behind the Elements and Sorrento. And often the car park is full. So that depends on the level of parking rates, whether it should be free or whether it should come with a charge. We have yet to finalize it. About landing facilities, we'd like to provide a covered landing facility as in the form of a normal pier, not just landing steps. What about the opening hours? In principle, as we're discussing with the government departments, the WKCDA will be in charge of the management. It should remain open most of the time. As you can see, let's turn to this slide first. For the access point on the southern side, it's quite close to the course of the ferry pier in Tsim Sha Tsui. So the WKCDA is supposed to manage the access point, and we would want to avoid having too many vessels lining up outside, disturbing the waterways. We are considering a booking system so that vessels can berth there subject to booking, and we'll try to extend the hours as much as possible, especially when there are still ongoing works at the WKCDA and that the place will still remain open at night. Ms. Claudia Mo. Well, we allow free use of the Central Wan Chai bypass. You should allow free coach parking. How much can you save after all? $6 half an hour, so that's $12 per hour. The coaches there would rather drive around than use the parking facilities in To Kwa Wan. Well, that's contributing to air pollution. It's pointless to rely only on education. You should stop these coach drivers from circling the district. And if they go outside the WKCDA, and it will cause a great nuisance to the neighborhood. So please keep your parking free. 43 coach spaces are just too few. Comparing to private cars, you say that as many as 2,300 parking spaces will be available. That's more like it. But 2,300 versus 43 for coaches only. My first question is, why the big contrast? Second, Hong Kong should be developed into a walkable city. My concern is that WKCDA has cost us so much effort and time, and then in the end, it's just a mirage in the in a desert, not an oasis. It's not accessible. Despite the footbridges, etc., I still find it difficult to reach. Although you just now said that you could now reach there via the podium, you still have a lot of footbridges, a lot of roads. That means pedestrian can't really access at grade. I think in terms of design, it is already problematic. According to your paper, in the medium term, there will be further improvements. Well, you've used the correct Chinese term, improvement. What about the long term? Do you have any timetable? That's the second question. Thank you. Who will take the question, please?
It's a mirage. I turn up every day and there's the CHU Centre and the M+ is going up and it's a bloody big mirage if you ask me.
Mirage.
I think the point here is that you can't expect perfection on day one, not with a project that's going to take 20, 30 years to build. We have to progressively develop the connections.
嗱，主席，我真係唔想花。
Chairman, I don't want to spend time dwelling on whether it's a mirage or not. I just want to ask about coach parking. Why 43 spaces only, whereas you have 2,300 spaces for private cars? And also medium to long-term goal, please. Parking spaces, charges, please. Now, be it private cars or coaches. We have conducted a detailed study, and our plan has been approved by the Transport Department. It is not a unilateral decision made by the authority. We need approval from the Transport Department. So we conducted a study. No, sorry, Chairman. Just now they said that perhaps if parking is not sufficient, there is space for temporary parking. Mr. Yu Xiuming asked about the major event, and basically their answer is, we'll see then. Now you talked about a detailed study, and then you have come up with 43 spaces?
There are two different issues here. The first is what we're required under the town planning requirements, 43. Whether we can do more will depend on the space available. There will be temporary spaces, particularly in that central section. We can look at that.
But please take this in mind. Ms. Mao has a good point.
Yeah.
If the bus keeps circling around, it will create air pollution problem.
Sure, absolutely.
And
Traffic
so,
jam.
Right. So please take this comment and go back and study and see if the first indication was right. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in fact, for every major event, we have to work with both police and transport department to look at the delivery of people to the event and the dispersal, which is actually more important in many ways.
Okay. 謝偉銓議員
Mr. Tony Chair. First of all, I thank the administration for replying to me about the cost estimate for the Artist Square Bridge design. Although the reply has come 10 months after. I asked about the construction cost because we're concerned about the pricing of this Artist Square Bridge. I don't think it's fair to the designer with a reduction of $200 million. The reduction involves design and also the length. Of course, if we are to come down to the details, it's difficult to have a detailed breakdown. By logic, if the bridge is shorter, basically the cost should come down. I am not insisting that the design should be really extravagant. A no-frill design might be sufficient, but I want to emphasize that as the WKCD, we need to think about the connectivity, such as footbridges and subways, and I think it is important to highlight the uniqueness of WKCD. The subway should look different from ordinary government-built subways so that we have a different feel when we enter WKCD. So I think the professional team of WKCDA should continue to make an effort. without substantially raising construction costs, you're still able to highlight the features of WKCD. This is not just an impression. We need a good footbridge, which may very well become a tourist attraction itself. It may benefit tourism because we have ample examples around the world. That's what I wish to emphasize. Chairman, another point is that I welcome the environmentally friendly effort made by the WKCDA, including the EFLS, and also their effort in using smart technology. You have the autonomous vehicle trial and other initiatives in the paper. I'd like the WKCDA to elaborate on it. They have yet to finalize the proposal, whether the EFTS should come in the form of electric buses or not. If possible, please do give us more information. I understand they have yet to finalize the proposal. And about the autonomous vehicle trial, the waterfront promenade spans a length of 1.4 kilometers long for the autonomous vehicles, and some 6,000 participants have taken part in the trial run. I hope they can make a decision as soon as possible. The other point is about smart parking and online payment of parking charges. Does it mean credit card or other forms of smart payments?
Talking about the autonomous vehicle, the trial has actually been very successful. We've had a good response from the public that have used the system. My problem with it is that I'm not sure it's appropriate to have a vehicle transfer in the park area. So we now need to extend the trial into the more public roads and see if it works within the sort of underground road and the long-term situation. I think it is still a possible solution, but I don't really think long-term it should be public and traffic so close together, because the concept is to bury the traffic underground and to have the above-ground area to be pedestrianised. So while the trial has been successful, I'm not sure that that is the solution in its current form. That's the first point. I think in terms of long-term, we do need an environmentally friendly system. And electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles will provide that, but perhaps not in the routing that we're using it at the moment. So I think that's the point I would like to make. Do you want to talk about the other points?
The Honourable Member asked about parking and the payment of parking charges. In fact, it is linked to the Transport Department's website. We mentioned some 200 parking spaces, and the drivers would have information about the vacancy of these spaces and the direction. At the moment, drivers are not allowed to pay online, but they can use credit cards or octopus cards. Do you have this in mind? We are looking into it. How we can further improve the system when...
Mr. Chairman?
Okay. 我俾你補充，因為你會
Yes, I'll allow you to supplement it, or rather, would you like to wait for a second round? Sorry, speaker's not coming through. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Member, for the question. And I think members also understand that the footbridge is subject to quite some limitations. The design is of a no-frill in nature. And about the artistic installation and also illumination, whether we can further beautify the subway to make it more artistic and vibrant. I will continue to bring more details in the design. And Mr. Chair asked about our late reply to Mr. Chair's question. In fact, after our last meeting, we made the comparison immediately. And then we further beautified our design of the footbridge. So we need to compare that with the latest cost estimate, and we revised the figures. Thank you. Next, Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I'm concerned about access and egress by vehicles in the WKCD. I have this recent experience. I drove from the Hong Kong Island to WKCD. On each occasion, it took me more than an hour. Of course, that happened during the evening peak hours. I went to WKCD to watch a performance. I did not have a good experience. After using the Cross Harbour Tunnel, it took me more than half an hour's driving to reach WKCDA with just a distance of 2 kilometers. It is unacceptable. Well, basically, WKCD is well connected with the nearby road network. What about the 2,000 parking spaces that will be completed in the future? I'm very concerned about the traffic capacity. So how are we going to address this problem?
So, how do the administration and the authority look at this? We've just got the one facility commission, CHAN Center. What about when other tenants, commercial tenants, all move in? I'm not optimistic about traffic.
Difficult to comment on traffic outside the district. It's also difficult to comment when we haven't got the underground road, when we haven't got the central section of the basement, which will provide a lot of the parking. These are things that will be coming. I would obviously just say that we do talk regularly with both traffic and the police, the transport department and the police about the traffic in and around the district. And the improvements that we've described in the presentation, increasing the bus routes, putting in the links to the MTR, are designed to ease the traffic overall. But they take time, I'm afraid. That's the reality.
That's why I would like the administration to respond to my question.
Chairman, maybe I can provide a brief response. I must say I'm familiar with the traffic conditions there. As Mr. Duncan Prescott said, after you leave the harbour, the Cross Harbour Tunnel, and if you are going there during the evening peak hours for a performance, very often the traffic problems have got nothing to do with the WKCD. It's just the general congestion that we experience. Of course, we would continue to talk to the Transport Department, but as Mr. Prescott has pointed out, within the WKCD, there will be the underground road and to be built. And we also encourage people to use public transport, either it's the MTR or the waterborne transport, which would provide a better system for the audience. We do not actually encourage the audience to drive to see a performance because of congestions of the Cross Harbour Tunnel and the roads there. Well, if that's the case, you don't need 2,000 parking spaces. It's not going to be cheap. It's costly to provide so many car parking spaces.
Most of the commercials, most of the car park spaces, because they're a requirement under the Town Planning Board, relate to the commercial space as well as the cultural space. And the logic is that we share, because the commercial space during the day, the cultural use during the evening. So that's the logic. We would actually need far more if we were trying to double the amount.
Ms. Tanya CHAN. I think the authority is correct about this. And that is if you have bicycles intermixing with pedestrians, and if you have an autonomous vehicle in an area where you have pedestrians as well, you have to be careful. Yeah, so I can understand the point about this, about appropriateness. The government is sort of promoting e-vehicles, and I don't know how many of the spaces or charging points would be available, whether all the power supply has been completed. And now we have Art Basel. And if the exhibition center is also ready, then we can have activities on both sides of the harbor, which would be interesting. And on the right-hand side, we have the so-called the pier, the marine landing points. Can we have that earlier? Because at present, the landing steps at Yau Ma Tei are rather rudimentary. Can we get something better for landing? And if the facilities over the palace, on the other side, near the Palace Museum, I have this plan, the breakwater. Is the opening too narrowed? Have I mentioned water quality? I know we need to talk about not just the transport department. The authority maybe have to take it up with the DSD, Drainage Services Department, on the water quality there. Because if there's an older problem, it's really not nice.
多謝主席，多謝議員。
對唔住，處長。
就住嗰個碼頭停泊設施，或者我先回應多少少。
Director, let me say something about the landing point. We are going to start the consultancy study this year. The views expressed will be taken on board, and we will take up the matter with the relevant departments. Be assured that we will do all these. Charging points for e-vehicles, and also would you do something to improve the landing steps at the typhoon shelter? Because the new landing points may not be ready in time. At present, what we've got are just some landing steps. I'd like to know the plan ahead. Well, we are trying to introduce a new landing facilities in phases. The one at the typhoon shelter is simpler and may be available earlier. And we need to issue a gazette notice for the new facility. So the commissioning day, expected commissioning day is 2022, 2023. According to a paper back in PWSC in 2008, 2009, paper number 31, the government said that there will be a public landing facilities or pier. Is the government going to provide a facility like a pier, or is this one in WKCD will be the only one? Well, we'll be looking at the usage. We are discussing this with the WKCDA. If we are talking about a public facility, it will be funded by the government, and we would adopt the usual procedure. We'll follow the usual procedure. Dr. Helena Wong, on landing points, there will be 3 in the future. Can they be used by both ferries and water taxis? Can all the 3 be used by ferries and water taxis in the future? Well, depending on the depth of water and the facilities, supporting facilities. As we can see, marine traffic is rather busy there. I believe we can allow the use of the landing steps at the Taiwan shelter by the vessel which are not too big. And for ordinary vessels, it can also use the landing point there. There will be steps at the southern marine landing points. Is that there will be no need to do any engineering upgrade for the 2 other landing points? Director, apart from so-called standard pier, we can consider a pontoon type of landing facilities. That's a possibility. We will consider such options at the detailed design stage. We want to make sure that they are most effective design for the WKCD. We hope that we can allow the use by more types of vessels. So I hope you can do a good job in providing marine connectivity. We have received some views from local residents connecting pedestrian connections. The original design for WKCD is one with a canopy, which would provide covered connection. But now the residents are covered, whether there will be covered pedestrian connections which they can use under all weather conditions. And turning to the autonomous vehicle, it's mainly for connection with the western part. I know very little about the design. Can you have something for east-west connectivity at grade for pedestrian, or subway system for pedestrian? Because you have buildings there with no internal connections. People coming over from Jordan and Tsim Sha Tsui will walk to WKCD. Do you have covered walkway or subway or monorail linking up CG Center and M+? I know the autonomous vehicle is for the western part of WKCD, but what about another monorail or another autonomous monorail system for east-west connectivity? I visited Guangzhou. There's near the Pearl River Promenade, they have autonomous rail grade rail system. Can we do something like that?
The autonomous vehicle isn't just for the Western District. It just happens that at the moment it's used in that area.
I'm looking at the PowerPoint you provide
As I
to
say,
me. It is an autonomous vehicle.
Just at the moment, because we don't have the central section.
Yeah.
But our intention is to have a service that provides east-west links throughout the district. Now, whether it's at grade or underground, as I said earlier, probably not at grade, but probably underground for that one.
Underground?
Yes, because bear in mind, all of the traffic and the transport is buried. That's the fundamental design concept for this district. So all of the traffic goes underground. At grade, in fact, at the podium level, it's purely pedestrianized. And there we have colonnades, we have links north-south, which will be fully covered, but within the district, it's partially covered and partially not covered. That's the concept that we're implementing.
So are you saying that you will have another rail or
no, we're not looking
autonomous
at a monorail.
Vehicle to connect the Empress and the CG Center?
Yes, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah. But if this is the case, why you didn't show it to us?
Because I can't do anything in the middle section until I get the money to build the basement, which will allow us to build the rest of the site. At the moment, I don't have anything in that middle section.
So you mean that in your proposal, you are thinking of building a rail?
No, we're
monorail underground?
We're definitely not going to build a monorail. That's old technology. We will use modern technology, probably autonomous vehicles, using the underground road to link east and west.
OK。
跟住易志明議員
係咪嗰啲地底唔可以行路？
Can people walk underground to link up M Plus with CG Center?
The whole point of the design is the pedestrian area is at the podium level, not underground. But if someone insists, there will be routes between each of the buildings underground.
易志明議員。
唔該，主席。我有幾方面
Mr. Yik Chiming?
咧就
I have a number of questions. Just now, I heard about land transport arrangements. Now, the WKCDA is only considering what happens inside, and I hope the PS would also consider connectivity from the outside. Like Mr. Ma Fung Kwok said, if you come out from the Cross Harbour Tunnel, or if you come from the East Kowloon to WKCA, you either take Jordan Road, or what's it called? The other road. Anyway, yes, Austin Road. Either Austin Road or make a detour via the Yamate fruit stalls. Now, we all know that when a performance is about to begin, it will be peak hours, and definitely there'll be traffic congestion, especially coming out from Shanghai Street. There's the hatched area, and then if you take a left turn from, that whatever road, I don't recall the name, again, traffic congestion is serious. You need to pay attention to that. The second point is about marine traffic arrangement. To the south side, I see the access point is problematic because it's close to the China Ferry Terminal. And I need to consult my sector. I believe that my sector will have some views on the matter. Why don't you put it towards the end of, the tip of the site near the breakwater? If you have electric vehicles to provide shuttle service, it will solve the problem. You can, have a setback and then provide a temporary marine access point. And parking spaces, what happens if there are insufficient parking spaces? There is a slip road next to the Western Harbour crossing. Eastbound, westbound, very often, it is rarely used by any traffic at all. So if necessary, after the government takes back the Western Harbour crossing, it can also be a parking space. But of course, you need to ask the Fire Services Department. Still, perhaps you can give it a thought about the autonomous vehicle. What's the capacity per car? It seems that it is rather limited. Can you have a vehicle that can have more seats? And I'm happy to learn from Mr. Prescott, who just said that he considers monorail outdated. So tell the government, don't use monorail and Kai-Tak. It's outdated. Let me answer Mr. Yik's questions about outside connectivity. Earlier, about the WKCD reclamation area, the government conducted a detailed study. In fact, in paragraph 20 of our paper, we mention that the Transport Department commissioned the Highways Department to conduct a study, and the relevant works are underway. The remaining improvement works would be completed in 2019, and by then, I will relay Mr. Yik's comments to the Transport Department to see whether there is further improvement to traffic there. About WKCD, we also conducted a detailed study about the internal connectivity. There are different entrances and exits for the roads at grade and underground. And like Mr. Prescott said, we hope to implement the road arrangements to diverse traffic. And about the marine access points, we have been liaising very closely with the Transport Department. We are concerned about the high-speed vessels plying to and from China Ferry Terminal as well. Like the WKCD representative mentioned just now, in the future we may need to implement marine traffic arrangements, say for the frequency. How frequent should the vessels be able to use our landing steps? We may need some coordination. It may not suitable for vessels to berth at WKCD during peak hours of the high-speed ferries. Now, it cannot be placed at the tip of the site because the sea is quite rough. It may be difficult to use the point as a berthing point. We'll continue to liaise with the Transport Department as well as the Environmental Protection Department so that we can come up with a solution that meets all legal requirements and also marine regulations. Yes? Who would have a go? I have 3 questions. I'm sorry, wait. Temporary parking, that's just a suggestion. About the Western Harbour Crossing Slip Road, there is a surface link. You can consider using that space, subject to meeting other requirements. Third point, autonomous electric vehicles. The seating capacity, please.
The vehicle we're testing has a seating capacity of 11.
11.
But that's just the test vehicle. I mean, to be frank with you, once the technology is good enough, it can be implemented on large vehicles or small vehicles. I think the key issue with the autonomous vehicle really is whether Transport Department will allow them to go on the road and mingle with normal transport. That's the issue that we need to test next. We've proved that they work, they are safe, but we need to now test them in a different environment, and that's the challenge at the moment.
Okay, as far as you have a plan to expand the capacity, I think that's fine with me.
Oh, yeah, that's no problem. We can just get a bigger vehicle. That's easy.
All right. Okay. 最後呢，我想問。
Finally, let me also respond to some points raised by members, in particular traffic. The situation has improved comparing to 2 years ago because in the whole of West Kowloon, we have new roads, we have traffic diverted, but I think the WKCDA should closely monitor the traffic condition, just like the heavy traffic congestion that happened when the Central Wan Chai bypass was first commissioned. So what will the future be? I can't predict that. But the point is, the change should not bring in even more traffic congestion in Kowloon West. About marine access and the berthing points, I agree with Mr. Frankie Yik, and also, in fact, Dr. Helena Wong asked a similar question. I show similar concern because this route is plied by high-speed ferries at the moment. And then within WKCD, about the flow of pedestrians, whether you have rain shelters, subways. My understanding from your presentation is that there will be autonomous smart vehicles, but from your slide, I understand that the route is rather short. Would you consider extending the route to Xishu Center? Just give it a thought. Apart from autonomous vehicles, in fact, last time I also commented on bicycles. So please give it a thought as well. So that's my comment.
Absolutely look at the issue of linking the east and west. I think it is so important. But honestly, the key is that underground road, because that's the safest way to do it within the district. And that we can control. If I have to go outside the district, much more difficult.
Okay.
All right. We would like to have more information from the WKCDA as well, so please do so as soon as possible. Ms. Claudia Mo, second round, but she isn't here now. I will need to adjourn the meeting now. We need to hand over the venue to another meeting. Anything to supplement? Yes, I'd like to supplement. First, like Mr. Prescott said, About east-west underground connectivity, we have prepared a PWSC paper. This will be scrutinized by members in due course. About outside connectivity, like the CDD said, in fact, in 2009, there was a study completed with 7 recommendations of improvements provided. We hope that after implementing these recommendations, the connectivity both inside and outside the WKCD will substantially improve. The traffic capacity should be able to meet the demand until 2031 AOB. Anything under AOB? Next meeting will be held on the 29th of April, 4:30 to 6:30. We have 2 items for discussion. One is the latest financial arrangements for our WKCD, and 2, the latest progress of the WKCD ACE development. Meeting's adjourned.